from Guyana, the region, and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. With the news at this time, I am Tiana Jordan. A very good morning to you. First, the lead stories. Locally, the narcotics law has been amended to include ecstasy and other designer drugs. And in regional news, Grenadian police have officially confirmed that the bodies of 7 adult males were found in a vessel drifting near Karayaku. The details of these and other stories will be coming up right here in just a moment.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now the news in detail. Technicians of the Guyana Forensic Laboratory will now be able to be in legal possession of firearms and ammunition to conduct ballistic tests for court cases. An amendment of the Firearms Act was yesterday approved by the National Assembly. Government parliamentarian, Attorney-at-Law Sanjeev Dattadin.
What this does, Mr. Speaker, is it allows those employees who are tasked and hired for the specific purpose of examining the firearms to handle it, to produce their report, and to give evidence in a court of law without them having to have a firearm permit.
The opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, supported the amendment to the law as tabled by Home Affairs Minister Robeson Ben. Shadow Home Affairs Minister, Attorney-at-Law Geeta Chandan, is, however, recommending that the technicians at the Guyana Forensic Laboratory be properly trained to conduct ballistic tests.
It is hoped, sir, that they receive scholarship and they are given the opportunity to be exposed to the highest global standards. So, sir, as a former member of the bench and a current member of the bar, I cannot emphasize how important that is. If the technical staff are called upon to testify and they are not in possession of the requisite qualification, their expertise will be called into question.
Former Home Affairs Minister, Attorney-at-Law Kemraj Ramjatan, is cautioning against staff of the Guyana Forensic Laboratory taking the firearms out of the forensics laboratory.
We do not want to see the analyst here, although he or she is working on that gun for purposes of analyzing it, that they're going to take it home or put it in their car and so on. The laboratory has the facilities there. And once in there, they can do their thing. Nobody should then say they are in unlawful possession because they don't have a license. But we got to ensure that these protocols are adhered to so that they don't start gallivanting, as it were, with this.
Former Home Affairs Minister, Attorney-at-Law Kemraj Ramjatan. The opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, yesterday welcomed the amendment to the Narcotics Act to include designer drugs such as ecstasy, but says the approach needs to be wide-ranging. With the amendment of the law, police and customs and anti-narcotics unit agents now stand a greater chance of securing convictions against persons caught with designer drugs. Opposition lawmaker Jermaine Figueres says while he supports making the possession of ecstasy and other designer drugs a criminal offense, he thinks that there should be an alternative to sending convicts to jail.
Has there been any much thought to the implication this will have on our already overpopulated prison systems? Has there been any thought towards alternative sentences, alternative punishment, such as hours of supervised community services, sentence to a drug rehabilitation center, for example? Has there been any research done, Mr. Speaker, to ascertain why our youth are attracted and are engaged in the use of these synthetic drugs?
He thinks the government has failed to address a number of major related issues, including the need for proper testing and screening of users of designer drugs.
I do support the bill, but I believe strongly, sir, that much thought has not been put to the real intent of what the bill seeks to achieve. Where can the victims of these drugs go to seek help, Mr. Speaker? Are our healthcare providers trained to deal with these victims? And are our health facilities, do they possess the testing kit, toxicology laboratories to provide that will be most useful, Mr. Speaker, for those who abuse these drugs? These are questions that has to be answered.
Mr. Figueres says the government should have conducted a study on the use of synthetic drugs and hold a national education campaign about these drugs and the dangers they pose. He says that there should be an interagency approach involving the Ministries of Home Affairs, Human Services, Health, and Education to combat drug use. 2 unvaccinated women and a partially vaccinated man have died from complications linked to COVID-19. Their passing brings Guyana's COVID death toll to 1,023. The Health Ministry said there are now 842 active cases. 12 of them are receiving intensive care as they are very sick. Official figures show that there are 14 new cases. 40 persons are hospitalized and 802 have been ordered by doctors to isolate themselves at home. In Latham, a man has been arrested after he allegedly assaulted a woman because she refused to continue their relationship. Police say they are treating the incident, which occurred on Sunday afternoon at 5:30, as inflicting grievous bodily harm. Investigators say that the 43-year-old man lashed the woman and broke her left arm and hit her in the head with a brick. At the time of the incident, she was washing in her backyard at Kanaku Drive, Latham. He reportedly asked them to mend back their relationship, but when she refused, he threatened to kill her and commit suicide. The woman told police that she became fearful and decided to flee, but he grabbed her by the hair, picked up a piece of wood and lashed her to her left arm and hit her with a clay brick to her head. She said she managed to escape and ran over to a variety store where she sought refuge. The woman said that about an hour before, she and her brother had returned to Latham. She said that as she was waiting at the bus service to collect her suitcase and bags, she saw the suspect riding on a bicycle heading in her direction, so she hid herself from him. And now in regional news. Grenadian police have officially confirmed that the bodies of 7 adult males were found in a vessel drifting near Karayaku. The force says officers assigned to the Northern Division responded to a report of a drifting vessel in the vicinity of Gunpoint, Carriacou on December 12th. The boat was retrieved and towed to Harvey Vale by the Grenada Coast Guard, where 7 adult male bodies were discovered in a decomposed state. Specialized units of the force are presently analyzing personal effects and devices found on board the vessel, following which a comprehensive update will be provided. Police investigations are ongoing. The Bahamas government says that the country becoming a republic is not on the front burner. The issue has been a talking point in several Caribbean islands since Barbados last month shed its constitutional monarchy, in which Queen Elizabeth was the head of state. Now that Barbados is a republic, the Governor-General has been replaced by a largely titular president. More in this report from Eyewitness News, Bahamas.
The Bahamas transitioning into a republic is not currently on the Davis administration's agenda. During the weekly press conference at the office of the Prime Minister, Press Secretary Clint Watson said while there are other matters at the forefront of this government's schedule, if becoming a republic is something the Bahamian people ask for, they would oblige. The conversation on the Bahamas becoming a republic was reignited last month when Prime Minister Philip Davis visited Barbados to observe its transition into a republic.
This has been an ongoing discussion since 1973. The next phase of our independence. You've heard many members of you've heard a member of the cabinet speak about his push to see it happen personally as an individual. It is not a conversation we've heard a lot of in recent years until we saw what happened in Barbados, but it's obviously in the hands of the Bahamian people to decide. It's not on our agenda right now. However, the Bahamian people can change that if they determine this is what they want to do. It will have to be something that the Bahamian people request and put on the government's agenda. There is a process that's different from Barbados that we have here in the Bahamas as far as how that would happen. It's a little more cumbersome than what Barbados had to go through. Based on our constitution, it will require 2/3 of Parliament agreeing to it, and then it requires a referendum for the Bahamian people that has to be unanimously agreed to. So there is a process that's quite different from Barbados that we would have to go through for that to be considered. But that will have to be driven by the people, and it's not on the agenda at this time. And Prime Minister has made it clear that if the people press for it, then it could be considered. But he has no particular view on the matter at this moment.
Spokesman for the Bahamas' Prime Minister, ending that report from the Bahamas' Eyewitness News. Antigua and Barbuda's former Education Minister, Michael Brown, has been found not guilty of a serious offense. The judgment was handed down earlier yesterday in court by Judge Colin Williams. Brown has maintained his innocence. His bail conditions have now been lifted. The not guilty verdict paves the way for Brown to contest the All Saints West seat in the next general election, although a final decision has not been taken as to the candidate. Brown was charged back in November 2020 with a serious criminal offense which cannot be disclosed for legal reasons, and give sworn evidence to the court last Monday. The offense is said to have been committed 1 month prior to the charges being laid. Following his charge, Brown had been removed as Education Minister. The Airbus A330-200 that Suriname's aviation company, SLM, is leasing from an Israeli company has been cancelled. Star News reports that after the deal fell through, this amounted to a serious blow to the SLM that wanted to fly this aircraft on the mid-Atlantic route in February. Star News learns that in addition to financial issues such as a state guarantee, compliance also played an important role in the screening of the company. Although far-reaching agreements had already been made and the deal had already been reserved for Suriname, it collapsed. Leo Brunswick, member of the supervisory board, had announced during a meeting with Suriname's President, Chandrika Prasad Santokhi, and other top government officials that the Israeli aircraft would be used to make the company healthy. The SLM provides the mid-Atlantic route with a leased aircraft from Air Belgium. Star News says the failure of the lease means that confidence in the company will continue to decline internationally, making it very difficult to conclude beneficial contracts. And now for the international news, the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. A US congressional committee investigating the assault on the Capitol in January has voted to recommend that the former White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, be charged with criminal contempt of Congress. The recommendation will now go to a full vote of the House of Representatives. David Willis reports.
The violence was the worst of its kind in more than 200 years. An insurrection which delayed the certification of Joe Biden's victory, left several dead and dozens more injured, and sent lawmakers running for their lives. Congressional investigators believe Donald Trump's fist-bumping former right-hand man, one-time White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, played a vital role in that and other attempts to undermine the results of the 2020 election. But having supplied the January the 6th committee with documents relating to the day in question, Mr Meadows has since said he is no longer willing to cooperate, citing executive privilege on behalf of his former boss.
The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will face a significant revolt within his own party today when the House of Commons votes on new coronavirus restrictions for England. Mr Johnson will rely on the support of the opposition. Here's Adam Fleming.
This legislation will go through because the opposition Labour Party are going to support it. The problem is that a lot of the Prime Minister's own side are going to vote against him, and that gives him a bit of a blow to his authority. And also, just in the medium to long term, does this just make governing harder? For example, if in the next few weeks the government scientific advisors say you have got to introduce new measures to control the spread of the Omicron variant, like restricting opening hours for hospitality or shutting things down, then will the Prime Minister actually be able to deliver this?
Diplomats from Britain, France and Germany have warned that no real negotiations over the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran have been able to take place as Tehran was raising new positions inconsistent with the agreement. The latest, here's James Landale.
Talks to revive the Iran nuclear deal resumed 2 weeks ago after a 5-month hiatus. The aim to curb Iran's nuclear activities while lifting economic sanctions. But diplomats from Britain, France and Germany said they still haven't been able to get down to real negotiations with their Iranian counterparts. They said they were losing time dealing with new Iranian positions that were inconsistent with the original deal, which, they said, would soon be an empty shell, given Iran's fast-forwarding nuclear program.
Iran's chief negotiator has hit back, accusing them of persisting in their blame game. Ali Bagheri Khani tweeted that Tehran had worked constructively to narrow the gaps. This is Chris Barrow with the latest world news from the BBC. The Pentagon says no American troops or officials will be held accountable for a drone strike in Afghanistan last August that killed 10 civilians, including 7 children. The attack took place during the final days of the US-led evacuation of Kabul after the Taliban seized control. On his first official visit to Southeast Asia, the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has pledged that Washington will work with its regional allies to ensure the area remains open and accessible. Speaking in Indonesia, Mr. Blinken said China was acting aggressively in the South China Sea. Scientists are warning of dramatic changes at one of the biggest glaciers in Antarctica, the Thwaites Glacier, potentially within the next 5 to 10 years. Jonathan Amos has more details.
They call Thwaites the Doomsday Glacier because of the speed at which it is melting and the potential contribution this one ice stream could make to global sea level rise. If the entire glacier collapsed, it would raise the height of the oceans worldwide by 65 centimetres. This worst-case scenario is centuries away, but significant change is already evident, and US and UK scientists say that the development of multiple cracks at the front of the glacier will soon lead to a dramatic, albeit localised, breakup.
Researchers have found that brain surgeons and rocket scientists, often referenced in quips to denote cognitive prowess, are not necessarily cleverer than the general population. In a study of 400 neurosurgeons and aerospace engineers from Britain, Canada and the US, researchers found that the former outpaced the latter in semantic problem solving, but the rocket scientists had markedly better mental manipulation and attention scores. However, when compared with 18,000 members of the British public who undertook the same tests, the surgeons and engineers were not necessarily any more intelligent. And that's the BBC News.
The news came to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
And now to end the news, here's a recap of the leads. The narcotics law has been amended to include ecstasy and other designer drugs. In regional news, Grenadian police have officially confirmed that the bodies of 7 adult males were found in a vessel drifting near Eureka. The Bahamas government says that the country becoming a republic is not on the front burner. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio Newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.